Oh, here?
Who helped me with the Maamer? All over. The Rebbe came to America, Chav Ches Sivin, Tavshin Aleph. That Shabbos was Gimel Tammuz. Tavshin Aleph, the Friedrich Rebbe Verbring. That Verbringen, versteht sich, the Rebbe had a grace of Chavivis for that Verbringen. It was the first Verbringen here in America, the Rebbe Verbring, with the Friedrich Rebbe. The Rebbe himself Verbring Thursday night. It was Leil Beis Tammuz. This was the Verbringen of the Friedrich Rebbe, Gimel Tammuz. So this Verbringen, Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe quoted ganz often in Verbringens, and not Stam quoted it, but sometimes there was a small word, a small Maisa, the Friedrich Rebbe itself, and by the Rebbe, mamish, full Sicha is Verbringens. So the mashal, the Sicha Yedua of Was is a Chassid, Alam Ternchik, it's from that Verbringen, Gimel Tammuz. Derech Zeh, also the Sicha, where the Friedrich Rebbe was retired by that Verbringen, the Friedrich Rebbe was retired by Arichas. The whole story of the original Gimel Tammuz, Peizayim, when the Friedrich Rebbe was released, how they came into the Friedrich Rebbe and they told the Friedrich Rebbe, they wanted to tell the Friedrich Rebbe the absurd that he's released. But they came in, he was in the middle of davening, so he didn't respond. And they called him again, and Vay didn't respond. And until they hit the Rebbe. And the Nekuda, and the way the Rebbe was Meirich Barichis, this Vard, the Friedrich Rebbe in Teves decided that it's not only where it's Menagi the Torah mitzvahs, he's not going to give in. He's not allowing them to take the smoking b'chlal. So he's not giving them any sense of mitzias, and they don't exist. And then finally, one of them told the Rebbe, why are you doing this? They want to release you. The Rebbe was mafli the Indian that in the middle of the Maaser they called the Rebbe. That was the Achdus Hashem, that was the scholar in the Maaser. Also that the Rebbe explained by Riches. And so one of the Niyonim that the Friedrich Rebbe spoke then was that Tavshin Aleph, Gimel Tammuz, they were coming to 14 years to Yud Beis with Gimel Tammuz, Tavshin Aleph from Tafresh Peizayin, and the Friedrich Rebbe Gedet Yemel that we finished the first 14 years and now we're starting the next 14 years. And he said that what's the difference between the first 14 and the next 14? The first 14 is the Yad HaChazaka, and the second 14 is the Yad HaGdayla. What's the Shaykhis? Because by Yitzias Mitzrayim it says that the Yitzienu Hashem will be Yad HaChazaka. And where is Vayar Yisrael's Yad HaGdayla? That was Eresh by Kriyas Yamsuf. And Friedrich was Mevar Barichis that even though Yitzias Mitzrayim was full of Nisim and you saw the Yad Hashem and the Etzbel Ikim, Al Kol Tzad V'Shal, nevertheless, there wasn't such a gilui that Shem Havaya wasn't scholar to everybody. Like they craft, like Pari was able to say, Lo Yadat Yisavaya. It's Bali Kimu, but they weren't able to, Lavavke was a gilui Shem Havaya. Dafke by Kriyas Yamsuf, it was in Azal Oifin that Shem Havaya wasn't scholar to everybody. By Yaminu Ba'avaya V'Moshe Abed. So the first 14 years, Meken Mevair Zayin, Zalz was Tutzich. Oh, even the grace of Nisim, you can be virus zayin as Tivius, it has to do with Teva. But the second, but from when there's the Gilui of the Yad HaGdayla, now there's no Shaila Klal. So the Rebbe said there's always Achma Gilui Neinu, that it's Tzadika Di Spater, it's Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud. So the first 14 years, Taka, they were grace in Yonim and grace of Giluim. But Sof, there wasn't the Gilui of the Yad HaGdayla, it was only Yad HaChazaka. V'meila, Lav Dafke, that there was a Gilui. The Rebbe said, so ken zayin apor, there ain't alcohol upon him that didn't chab that was going on is a gili shem havaya. But now there's no way out. Now it was Yud Shvat Tav Shchav Dalet. Now the Gilui Shem Havaya is going by everybody. And the Rebbe then connected it to the Maamer. But this Nikud, that Gilui Shem Elikim is connected to the Indian of Koyach. Shem Havaya is connected to the Indian of Oyer. And the Indian of Oyer mizot that that it's not Misarev, and not Nislabish, and not Nitfas. By Koyach you can have that Indian there. That now there's a Gilui for everybody. Everybody can now see a Gilui the way it's not Nisarev, it's not that it stays Pshitus Dolamat. And Nafkamina La Avodah Zeba goes on weiter. We get to the Avodah Shabinian later or maybe a different Shiur. It's Negeya that the Rebbe you see in the Fabring and you see in that Sikha specifically. That's in the Sikha should be in the Kovetz, but I don't know. I think that Sikha was left out. The Rebbe saw Yud Shvat Tav Shchav Dalet as a turning point. That's a Zman that now the Yona was Montzich in the Maamer was Retzich in the Fabring and now this is was Montzich Itzer now chat everybody. Maybe in the earlier years, in the earlier Bosi Legani is Lav Dafke, but in their Bosi Legani, in their Yar, that meant Inyan was Itzer Shayat element. Even the one or two people that weren't able to pick this up before. As the Rebbe connected a later time, no Nasiv Malka, no Toiv Malka. Fine. One of the Yona that was Retzich Barichas in the Maamer, or there's in the Fabringen. So you have it here in the Maamer, it's the Sifim, Dalid, and Hey. It's be'etzem the Inyan of Klippis, and the Mensch was gefindt sich lamata mehr Klippis. Right, as the Rebbe already in the beginning of the Maamer, the Rebbe set it up, is that the Erin Soiv is Spashit Lamata Mata Adi Tachlis. So what's Lamata Mata Adi Tachlis? So first of all, Simtzu, Mishlashos Eilam is till Eilam Hazeh. And then there's Klippe. And then there's Lamata Mea Klippe. And in Lamata Mea Klippe, what's Lamata Mea Klippe? The person that's over on Aveira. So Yitush Kodmach, because the Klippe Sachkal is doing its purpose. Mashenkin, the person is going against his Kavanah. And Mezeh Gufa, a few dargis. There is when a person does an Aveira, Mamish, and Inyonim of Ra, Inyonim of Shoshkus at Meis. And then there is where you use Divrei Rishus for Hepech HaTeira. And Ad Kedei Kach, that a person uses Teira, Kedusha, Hepech HaTeira. Which is a very interesting Seder, because very we think as the Shoshkus at Meis, Dvarim Roi Mamish as the lowest, and then you work your way up. But here, Kumteis, the Mishmos in the Maamer is, they get to using Kedusha, that it's the lowest, it's klar. But even the way the Rebbe says, the Rebbe starts from Yona Yisr, and then Rishus, and then Kedusha, that it's Kviyachal Mamata L'mayla. It works that way that if a person is over in Aver Shal Kubzat Meis, that's one level. You take Divrei Rishus, right? Everything in this world is divided into three. You either have it's Klippa, or it's Kedusha, or it's Kviyachal neutral. What's not neutral? It's Klippas Noiga. Now, Klippas Noiga, you have two options. Either use it for Kedusha, Oichel, to serve the Eibishter B'keich Achilai, or use it for Egin Teves. Use it for Klippa. So l'chayra, what's worse? Using Divrei Rishus for Klippa, or doing Shalosh Kubzat Meis, doing a Dvar Avera. L'chayra is Dvar Avera. But l'chayra, the mashmalos over here is that when you use Klippa Mamish for Klippa, it's Klippa. But when you use Divrei Rishus, you're being moired Divrei Rishus to Klippa. Halachas kama when you use Kedusha, so let's say when a person learns Torah and uses Torah, the Paskin Hepech HaTorah, or when you use Inyone Kedusha in all different Neifanim and you use it, use it in the Neifan of Klippa, that's the worst thing. Fine. So in order to show how the Elikus gefindt sich in the Al Inyonim, so first he explains the Elikus gefindt sich in Al, the Vata Mechayas Kulam, Vata Mechaya, Lemahave, that the Chayas and this Havos of every Nivra has in it the Dvar Avaya, has in it Atzmos what's Lashon, how it comes through the Oyer and through the Oisius. That's no the Nivra. Then comes Sif Dalid and says not only that there's a Likus and a Gili Likus in Nivroim Bichlal, but there's also in Klippa. Right, this is the second level. That's in Klippa. Now, here's an interesting vart in the Hanacha. This vart, the vart of the beginning of Sharichud Emunah, Perek Aleph, the vart of Baal Shem Tov was moved in the middle of Sif Gimel. Right after, you're on page Chaf, right after you bring the vart of Alter Rebbe, I think Mechaya Lamahave in Perek Beis of Sharichud Emunah, they bring the word of the Baal Shem Tov in the beginning of Shayuch Be'emunah. Is brought right over there, which is where it's speaking about the Gilul Likusvas in Nevroim Michlal. But when the Rebbe says the Maamer, at least Motzei Shabbos Maamer, interesting, this whole word of the Baal Shem Tov is later. It's better in the beginning of Sif Dalet. When the Rebbe is speaking of, the Rebbe says like this, the Rebbe says that Atam Chayes Kulam, that what's the Kulam? Kulam is all the Nevroim. But it's not the pshat that it's only in Yonim of Kedusha and Divrei Rishos, where sometimes Mizet, the Kulam, right? Sometimes you see Kulam is Rubai Kukulai. So you could say like this: Kedusha, Divrei Rishos. So it's 2 out of 3. It's Rubai. It's the Roy. And Mechalak Klippus is mamish under everything. It's a miut. So you could say, we'll be able to say Rubai Kukulai. That's where you have the Dvaravaya there. Masha'ik and in Klippus, no. But we try to say that it's not Rubai Kukulai. It's Takei Kulai. When you bring the Maamer Chazal, Zon Mefarnis Mekan Re'im Mad Beit Zekinim, right? That's what the Friedrich Rebbe brings right after this that we say that it's Nimshach B'chol Anivroim. He brings the Zon Mefarnis Mekan Re'im Mad Beit Zekinim, and the way the Rebbe explains in the Maamer, what's Karni Re'im Mad Beit Zekinim? Karni Re'im is the highest level in Kedusha, and Beit Kinim is the lowest level. Beruchni is the seius in the of Klippus. Now, this is the way the Rebbe learns the pshat of the Friedrich Rebbe, why the Friedrich Rebbe is bringing the Maamer of Azon Faris Mekanim and Beikinim to say that it's in Klippus, right? In Canal, we spoke about this last time. In Sif Yudal, in Perik Yudal, the Friedrich Rebbe doesn't say clearly speaking about Klippus. It's the Rebbe learns the end of Perik Yud Gimel, that the word of the end of Perik Yud Gimel, that a person that learns Torah mitzvah seichel could use Torah hebech Torah, that's the meaning of being mamshich kedusha into Klippus. And the Rebbe learns this in Perik Yudal, that that's the pshat at Beikinim, the mamish bizla mata in the Klippus. But now the Rebbe has to mechiach it. Like, and how did the Friedrich Rebbe come there? Like, why? What's the ichacha that even Klippus, the Dvar Avai is there as well, and also Begilui. So here the Rebbe says this word that Atam Chayes Kulam is as the Rebbe brings the Pirs of Baal Shem Tov as Loyim Avai Dvar Chanitza B'Shamayim. As Oti Yis is from Va'atov von Alf bis Tov ist das steht betmidiyis und Läufen von Nitzav bli Shinoi und das ist Mahabu Mekai. Ist doch davon verstandig, als jeder Metzies, was ist da in Oilom, ist doch in Yeshes es Atzmoi, so it's not only Rubi Kukuloi, rather it's Mekani Re'emim, the Beyekinim, that's even the Bria Chiktan, even Klippus. Meaning that this word of the Baal Shem Tov, that Lo'olam Avayad Baruch Nitzah B'Shamayim, is Nitzovis, Lo'im Des Lo'olam, right, that the Ishabos and Chayos is an Inyan Tmidi in the Bria, that not the Pshat, the Eibishter created the world 5,784 years ago. And then the world sort of goes on autopilot, but rather that there's the oisius, the oisius of Rekia and Oir exist in the Bria, and constantly our Mahabit and Mechayit is B'chol Rega V'Rega. That's the Hichache that the Dvar Avaya and the Gilul Likus is also in Klippus as well. How is that a Hichache? What does that add that we didn't have before? We want to say the Atom Mechayes Kulam is Kulam, everything's there, it's Kulam everything. No, the proof that it's Kiddush everything is that Lo'im Avayad Varch Nitzvah Shamayim. So, as L'cheres, there's different Eifanim. One even L'cheres Bepashtos, that what it's doing here and why this is the Yisoid to the Havana that the Elikus is the Eirin Seif is Eichad in the Klippus is the Azay. Right, earlier in the Maamer brought over here at the end of Aleph that there's 2 Eifanim in Klippa. Interesting. In the Mat Shabbos Maamer, the Rebbe doesn't speak of these 2 Eifanim. I understand that this is from the Shabbos Nach or the Friday night Maamer. The Rebbe spoke about 2 dargas in Klippa. It's on page Yud Ches that there's Klippa of Shemeres Lapri. And then there's a Legani Gamina Klippa, Kvisha Meses, Umefate, Lavra, or Ritzoni Yisbarach. There's 2 Eifanim in Klippa. Aבצן, there was Klippa before Chetei Tzadas, and there's Klippa afterwards. I guess the Sugi and Chassidus, that what exactly was the Avodah of Dirab Tachtoinim before Chetei Tzadas, and there was no Ra. So we have to understand Dirab Tachtoinim differently then, and ultimately that leads to Ner Alila Bnei Adam, that ultimately the plan was for Dirab Tachtoinim after Chetei Tzadas. But even Klodis, there was the Klippa, the way it existed before Chetei Tzadas was that the Klippa was in its own, the Klippa and Kedusha didn't mix, it was in its own mother. And the way the Klippa is a Sholach. right? It's here to cover and protect the Kedushas. A klipa was like a klipa that Shemer Sapri. Appeal around the page. So there's one level of klipa without getting into arichis and asbara. The Nekuda is it was klipa the way it was when the Eibusher created the world, which was very different even the way we relate to klipa today. And then through Chet Tzadas, then klipa and kedusha were nisarev zebazeh, and since then ein toiv bli rav, ein rav bli toiv, and that's why there is maves ba'oil. That's why the oynish on Chet Tzadas was to die, because if we wouldn't die, as long as kedusha exists, klipa would exist, and we need kedusha klipa to cease to exist. And lasilavi bila mavis lanetzach, because then we won't have any klipa anymore. So then kedusha could exist on its own without having klipa nisarev boy. Al kol panim. When the Eibusher created the world, klipa wasn't klipa as we know it. It was a different kind of klipa. Nachmer, even that klipa that we're speaking about before, we know it says when the Eibusher created the world, oilam al miloi nivra. The Eibusher created the world. The Eibusher created a perfect world, right? And then things went haywire. If I would come and say, without the word of the Baal Shem Tov, that the Eibusher was mahav the world then in the beginning of creation. Right? But it's not the pshat that the Eibusher is oisius, and this habas and chayis is a constant, right? It's always here, and the oisius are always in the nivra. So I would come and say like this. When the Eibusher created the world, we didn't have klipa as we know it. So everything else, other than klipa, divrei rishos and divrei kedusha, what we have today is better than the same that we had in the beginning of creation. Fine. So the moment I say that the Eibusher created the world, and the Eibusher is and the oir and oisius or mahav and mechaya the bria. So I'm saying that the gila, that oir and soif came till mata till the bria soilam. But when it comes to klippis, if the whole connection point between the Eibusher and bria is only in the beginning of creation, then lavdafke the klippis are nichlol b'zeh, are nichlol in that achtos, because klippis definitely, as we know, it came about later. So I don't know that it has that every part of the nivra, that every nivra, even the klippis, are connected to the Eibusher. But now that I say that that the world is a davar chadash, and for the world to exist, it constantly needs the Eibusher to bring it into existence. So this not only the world the way it existed in the beginning of creation. This is b'chol rega v'rega. The world has to exist. The world needs the Dvar Hashem. The world needs to be nishaveh and get the chayes from the Eibusher. So I can't say that word. I can't be moitzi the klipa from that iskalos with everything that's connected to kedusha. Right? That's pasha in zman. In zman, that pasha that's in that's kaim today as well. Frat the way the Rebbe is mevari barichas, but in Tanya the way the Rebbe is mevari barichas, you have so many sichs and the sichs, especially chelik choftes, the parshas dvarim, parshas veschanon. That the word of the Baal Shem Tov is that not only that the Eibusher is mechaye, mahav and mechaye the world b'chol rega. It's not only a Indian in Zman, it's also Indian in Mokim. Meaning that not only the world's being recreated every moment, but rather Teves, V'oisias Elu, Nitzavis, V'oimdes B'seich Rakia Shemayim. That the Dvar Hashem gefindt sich in the Nivra Gufa. Right? It became part of who we are, it's part of our identity. It's not just that the Eibusher creates us and sort of stays rachik, removed from the Nivra, but rather that the Likus comes into the Nivra. Right? So here as well, will come to the same vart. If we wouldn't come to this nekuda that the Dvar Havaya is in the Nivra, then Lav Dafka I have to come and say that the klippis are connected. Because all we have is that's the fact that it exists. That's an existence of creation. Besides that's an existence, there's no difference. Like just like in Yon Gashmim, there's no difference the way the table's created and the roof is already the way the rakia is created and the way the oir is created, and the way many other nivra. The etzem nekudas ha'is havos l'chayr is the same in everything, right? Like one of the oirs here on Batim from one of the earlier Maamarim. Which oir was it? Yeah, oir Yud Aleph. Right? That there's the mahus sadavar, the etzem havayos shemitzadin ha'is havos, and mitzias sadavar tiboy v'tchunoyso shemitzadin mechayis. Mitzad Ishavos, everything's similar, right? It doesn't relate to the mitzias of the zach. The Eibusher said everything should exist. The Eibusher created the etzem mitzias of Welt. Once there's a world, fine. The world has within it all kinds of features. Well, they're connected. But once I say that Teves V'Esis Elos Nitzavis V'Imdes, that they go into the Nivra and there is Yachas to the Nivra itself, they have Shaychas to the Nivra, so then that's what I'm saying that also the Klippis have a Shaychas to Elikos. Right, so the same mitzad Zman, same mitzad Mokim, they need to connect. Fine, that's one Nekuda. Another interesting Nekuda, this is going to get to the next word of Meir Shoel Vayoal, right, the Rebbe brings from Imri Binah. Rebbe stam the Ilam Durkegang and Shara Tzitzis. It's not a very interesting Nekuda. Right, but what does the Rebbe bring from Imri Binah? What's the Nekuda the Rebbe trying to bring out over there? So after we say that there's a likos, that there's Oirin Seif in Klippa as well, we say Noch Nidirike, right? Because what's under Klippa? Under Klippa is the Adam HaChoyta. Because someone that uses Klippa to go against the Ratzon Hashem is worse than Klippa, which the Klippa is not doing what the Eibusher wants from it. So what is he bring? What's the marker for that? It says in Mesech Shamayim Sham Ota, Vatzia Shoel Hineka. If I'm up there in Shamayim, the Eibusher is there. Vatzia Shoel, in Mata, Hineka, the Eibusher is there as well. So the Rebbe says like this: what Shoel is the Einish for someone that's Eivar Natzin Elyon. And we'd say Vatzia Shoel Hineka, that the Eirin Seif is also by that person that's in Shoel, that was Eivar Natzin Elyon. So here we see, and there that brings by Riches, the Imri Binah, and the Cyrus, the whole sugya there. What's very interesting, you're going to read the whole Imri Binah, but if you have the Kovetz with the Maamer Koimis, just look over here on page 22 on bottom. It's very negaya, because sometimes we learn the Maamer, the Rebbe brings Maamer Koimis from the Rebbe, the Rebbe just quotes a word from the Rebbe and puts the Divrei Absinu Sienu together. But there's Meir Dika Chidushim. So over here, look on page 22. So the Rebbe says like this, in the beginning of the new Keta, Vini be'emes hagam sha'sho'el va'avadinu be'er shachas v'chai gavna. Hein la'anish l'rishoyim l'chaloisam. What's the meaning of sho'el, gehenim, and all these oinshim? What are they here? Their home mitzias is they're an oinish. They're the punishment for the rishoyim. Mikol mokim harashal harishoyim koshe harbe min ha'sho'el atzmai. Nevertheless, the rishoyim are on a lower level than sho'el. And the way the Rebbe says there, the tak in Shoel, there's a Gil Elikos. As the Rebbe says a few lines later. That there, second to the last line, therefore Yona was able to see Gil Eliki even in Pischei Shoel, because Shoel is not completely disconnected from the Eibusher. Mashenkin, the person, Mashenkin, the Rishoyim, by Zaynisht. A few lines there, the next page, on page 23, 4 lines from the top, the end of the line. Avla Eiver Aveira, it's ad Etzma Aveira Koshe Harbe Mea Shoel Atzmai, Ki Aveira Hura Gomer Shasoni Vitov Legamri V'nifrat Betzim Mikol Mikol B'Yichudi Yisbarach. He's disconnected from Achlas Hashem. So Shoel, yeah, but the person in Shoel Nisht. But the Rebbe learns, what's the word of Shoel? Shoel is the place of the Ivri Aveira. So we're basically saying that there's Gilul Likus. So Kilo, the Ivri Aveira in Shoel, and there's Gilul Likus there, so there's a Gilul Likus to them. In their place. So the Rebbe learns, the Rebbe is basing it off the Imri Binah, but the Rebbe learns that Tzach Tifeh. The Imri Binah, he says, klar, that Shoel there's Gilul Likus, but the Adam HaChoyta Nisht. But the Rebbe learns Adam HaChoyta he also has Gilul Likus. And that's the whole word, the Rebbe brings the whole word of Shoel, to show that in Shoel Gufa, there's Gilul Likus for the person that's there. And who's the person that's there? The person that's Choyta. How the Rebbe comes to there is based off a few other Akdamis, how we come to this Chidz. But first of all, how the Rebbe bases it off in Rebbe, but learns Tifik. Right, to get to that, so let's go back a bit to Siv Gimel. Since Siv Dalet. Since Siv Dalet Mired, that there's Gilul Likus, that there's Shachas Eirin Seif and the Gilead of Eirin Seif in Klippa as well. So he brings there negate to this nikude that there's Gilead Likus here as well. At Mechayes Kulam. Where is that line? Oh, yeah, at the end of Siv Daled. At the end there's also Nimshach Oir V'Chayes Aliki Al Derech Maamer Azal Eineid Mulvadoi Afiluch Shaf. Right, so there's 2 psukim. There's atar is ladas kevay olikim ein oid mulvade, and there's v'yadaita hayem v'shavayis el vavecha kevay olikim ein oid. Right, Chassidus, these two psukim are the yisoid. Right, v'yadaita is the beginning of Sharicha ve'emunah. It's based off the pasuk v'yadaita, and then it's atar is ladas. So what's the difference between V'yadaita and what's Adar Yisrael Adas? Adar Yisrael Adas is the way the Eibishter shows himself to us. V'yadaita Hayoim is Mo'mato L'mayla, and that's Mo'mayla L'mato. But then it finishes off, Einen Movada, Yen Ein Oid. So what's the Pshat? First of all, Pshat, Einen Movada, Yen Ein Oid. So there's a Maamer Chazal, B'negei to Einen Movada, and a Maamer Chazal, B'negei to Ein Oid. B'negei to Ein Oid, and Adar Yisrael Adas, Kevay Elikim Ein Oid. What's Ein Oid? Ein Oid, Afilu B'chaloli Shal Oilam. That's the Pshat Einoid. B'negeya to... Which one's... Atareis Eino Mavadi. So we have V'yadaita Einoid Afilu Chol Shaloilam. Atareis Eino Mavadi is Afilu Kshaf. So Chassidus puts these two together, even though obviously each one has its own Pshat. What's the Pshat Chaloli Shaloilam? Goes in the Cholol and Makim Panui and Kshafim. But Kama Mekoimis, Chassidus brings the two together and says that they're bringing out the same nekuda. That what's Chaloli Shaloilam and what's Kshafim, that Betzim Seget Afin Klippis. Right? That there's the Gilil Likus, it's Koidem at Simtzum. And Betzim we say that Simtzum Lav Kipshuti, that the Erin Seif is even Acher at Simtzum. That's in all the Elamis, and it's in this world. But then, afilu b'chaloli shaloylam, afilu kshafim, even in the klippus, alikus is there. Now, the shaila is, what's the pshat that alikus is in the klippus? Because we know that the whole inyan of klippus is sitra achra. There's the tzad akdusha, the tzad of the edish there, and klippus is sitra achra, the andere side. Tzad she'ene, what's also in Tanya, she'ene tzad akdusha, hipech akdusha. Right, and this is obviously a very, very fundamental point, right? There were shittas, and especially this was one of the big inyan, the shittas Frankisten, in the time of the Baal Shem Tov. What day was the Nitzach in Chaf Sivan? Was that the day that the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov celebrated? I think, yeah, it was the Vikuach, with the Frankisten, it was the whole Gzeira, and they won. So one of their big inyanim was Kilu. It was a theological debate. It was they had shittas in philosophy, and the taina was everything comes from the Eibush there, so everything's alikus. Toiv is alikus, ra is alikus, everything's alikus. So there's alikus in this, there's alikus in that. Some people can't handle finding the alikus in the Yonim Roim, so they have to stay with the Yonim Toivim. But some people go to the Yonim Roim, right, to find the alikus there. There's a godly spark there. When we can define the Meirishtim there, when we say that there's Amshach Elikus in Klippus, and there's Gili Elikus in Klippus, right? We were saying that it's Eirein Soif, was das Keilel Eich Derina Klippus, Einen Movade Filun Meichsach Shafim in Lomazeh. So you're saying that we could find the Eibush there in Lomazeh. So what does that practically mean? Right? We can't go to Lomazeh, you know, for care. So we say like this, that Be'etzem, Ein, Hayesh, Oises, Atzmoi, goes on everything. There is no, it's the Chasvara, right? Chassidus in the Vari Barichis, and this was in the Sabas V'chayis Sugya, that there's nothing that could be created. Nothing can exist on its own. The fact that something exists means that it was brought into existence. It has a makir. So it came here. So just the fact that it has klippus doesn't make it any less needy to have a makir, to have someone creating it. Obervas, you can't find the Eibishter there. Because its home Metzias is Aniva Avsiyah, its home Metzias is going Heibach Ratzinish. The Eibishter does not live, let's say that a Treifazach. The Eibishter is saying that this Inyan is against, it's fighting Elikus, it's Heibach Ratzin Hashem. If a person will go and look for the Eibishter in the Treifazach, a person will go to a place that you're not allowed to go to, you're going to that place, right? You had the Bach went on Mifzoyim they went to a place, Legani, and the Rebbe, that was a ganzen. They're saying, what do you mean? You have to find the likus everywhere. No, there is no. You don't find the likus. There's no gila likus there. So the shaila is, what does it mean? That even klippa is part of achdus yizbarach. How's the part of the Eibush Achdus? The klippa shreit. We're against the Eibishter. You don't find Alikus in Klippa. Klippa is screaming at you. There is no Alikus. So there's different biurim in Chassidus. There's Boivin Kloli. There's two biurim Kloli. One of the biurim is the biur was a gebrach b'derech klal, and that biur is like this. The biur is that Take, that's when the Eibishter versteht sich existiert überall. The Eibishter is everywhere. Now, what does it mean that he exists in the Klippa? That even the Klippa is here to be Megala, the truth, that Ein Movade. How is the Klippa Megala the truth that Ein Movade? Because Be'etzem Klippa doesn't exist. Why doesn't it exist? Because how could something exist that's Hebech Achdusi Yisbarach? It's doch Ein Movade. So what does exist? It's a header. It's not really here. What it's here for is that we should come along and prove that it's not a Metzias Amitis. It's not a real Metzias. If there wouldn't be a Metzias, which is not a real Metzias, but if there wouldn't be this Metzias called Klippa, then everything would be Achdus Hashem. You'd see the Eibishter everywhere. But a person could come and say, Lu Yitzuyer, there would be something called Klippa. Lu Yitzir, there would be this Mashal Azayna, this Metzias that's going against the Eibishter and trying to be mefat the people to go against the Ratzon Hashem. Then, in that Hechet Timtze, right? Hypothetically, there could be a place that's void from Elikus. So, the Poil is Achdus Hashem, but it's only B'Poil. But B'Koyach, there could have been a space. There's potential for a space that the Eibishter wouldn't be there. Comes Klippa, we have Klippa, and Klippa l'chayra, this is, okay, that's it, no, we put it to the test. There is this Metzias of Klippa, was Shait, Aniv Afsiyoid, and is here to take a person down and go against Ratzon Hashem. And now a person comes and is Megala, that this whole thing doesn't really exist. He doesn't give in to the temptation. He says, it's a taiva, it's not a Metzias Amitis. It's only Nisoyin, right? Lashon Chassidus, it's a Nisoyin. What's a Nisoyin? Nisoyin is a dimyon. When we say it's a dimyon, the dimyon is that it's not really, there is no real stira tachtusi yisbarach. There's only Eibishter, there's only Ratzon Hashem. There are things here that l'chayra are tempting me and will make me fall. It's only here that I should be megala that it doesn't really exist. It's not real. And I just have to stand strong and all of a sudden the ganze thing is in spot. Now, what does it mean that there's a Metzias in this world? It's a Metzias, but it's not a Metzias, it's a Metzias of head, there doesn't really exist. Fine, so here Chassidus explains that how does Klippa B'chlal come into existence? The Klippa is the Chepech Ritzoyni Yisbarach. So if the Eibishter doesn't want it, how does it exist? How do we come into existence? What brought us here? The Eibishter's Ratzon. Chofetz Avaya Asa. Whatever the Eibishter wants is brought into existence. By us, we have a Ratzon, it's like you want something. You said it can't will. Right? It doesn't make anything. So say if you have a Ratzon to something, it doesn't not necessarily is it going to exist. And Lidach, I don't want something. Say you don't want, and it still showed up. I want to have a peaceful day. I don't want this guy making me crazy. And it makes me crazy. I'm saying that. I don't want to be tired. I'm tired. It happens. Right? Your Ratzon is irrelevant to what actually happens. But the Eibishter, the only thing that really exists is the Eibishter. Anything else can be achol. At least that seems as a dover noise, as a nivra. Any nivra that exists is only mitzad one reason. Because Erevil, he wants it exists. He doesn't want it, doesn't exist. No. So Klippa, the Eibishter doesn't want Klippa. As we say, it's Heipech Ratzin Hashem. The Eibishter doesn't want Averis, so how do they exist? So that's what's in Kabbalah, and Chassidus speaks about Barichus, that the Eibishter, so he looked at Maisa Tzadikim, Maisa Rishoim, Kedusha and Klippa, and he said, the Eibishter Zok, Dein Hanyamli, Dein Loy Hanyamli. This I want, this I don't want. So when he said, this I want, I'm happy with this is good, so Kedusha was created. Kedusha created it. So it was brought into existence. When he says, Dein Loy Hanyamli, that itself, that Loy Hanyamli is what brought Klippa. Because when the Eibishter says, I don't want it, you don't want what? Right? I don't want it, so there's an it. Right? That itself is a yachas from the Eibishter. The Eibishter is acknowledging a certain reality, a mitzias. Before the Eibishter says, Den lo yhanyali, there is no eichetimsa, there's no mitzias, not klipa, not rishos, not any nivra. But when the Eibishter says, Den lo yhanyali, he's saying, there is this reality that I don't want that reality. So by saying I don't want that reality, that creates a reality. It's acknowledging, because everything that exists in this world is when the Eibishter's yediyah, when the Eibishter thinks about something, that's what makes the thing exist. We all come from the Eibishter's ratzin, from the Eibishter's yediyah. So Dein Loi Hanyanli brought that Metzias. But because the Metzias comes from Dein Loi Hanyanli, Ich will es nicht, right? So it's a non-existence. So what's created from the Eibishter's Dein Loi Hanyanli is something that doesn't really exist.
Why can't you just say that he wants it, but then he's saying it's ratzin? Is that like a simpler way to say it? He wants it, but he wants it only in order for something else, and therefore its Metzias is tali in something else, and it's Shach Metzias.
No, but that would only get me as far as saying that it's a hechsher for something else. It's not a Metzias Pnimi. It's not like the Shamas Yisrael. It's not like a Hilik Azach. That's the Matara. It's a Imtsoi for the Matara. It's a means to an end, but it's still a Metzias. Right, it's a Metzias. It's a dependency on something else, but it's still a Metzias. Here we're saying more, that it's Heder. It's Mamish Heder. Now, so Melus, because it's Heder, so Ein Oid Milvada Yafilu Kshafim, when we are Megala, the Be'etzim, this whole Zach is one big Heder. It's a bluff. You call it bluff. That's the Aveda. Call it bluff, and then you're Megala Achlas Hashem. So then the Klippa becomes a tool for Achlas Hashem, and Achlas Hashem is a skala in the Kshafim. Now, granted, it's not in the Kshafim Gufa, because you called it bluff and it ceased to exist. Right? The balloon pops, and then there is no Klippa. But that's a pshat, if you look kshafim, that even the kshafim are part of this process of the megala achdusi yisbarech, by their header, by their shlila. But then there's a deeper oif. Right, the first oif is the derech of tzaddikim. Right, tzaddikim, they don't deal with ra bichlal. The way they deal with ra, they come in mamshech alikos. In this world, they come and they come to this world, and they bring all the different rishos. It comes to klipa. They're doichera, right? They're moyes bara, they're doichera. The ra is nispatel. They're mevatel ra. But then there's an oifin where you say einen movadoi afilu kshafim. The klipa itself. We see it as a mitzias, and this mitzias gufa, in the mitzias itself, we're megala likus. That's what the shaila, how could then be? The klipas of hypocritzoni is barach. So Chassidus says like this: if you're looking at Welt mitzad, istaklus from Welt, the way a human being sees it. Then yes, there's kedusha, there's klipa, there's rishos, there's klipa, right? There's this whole division that exists, which is ultimately created here for us. We have to know what we can use, what we can't use, how we're misyachas to all the different parts of creation. But let's look at it mitzad the Eibishter. Mitzad the Eibishter brings all these things into existence. So let's even ta'ena chanami, the klipa is a header, and it comes from dein lo yahanyanli, it comes from that dark. But sof. The fact that anything exists, what allows it to exist, and the whole back to the word we said earlier, this nekuda, that it's the word of the Baal Shem Tov, that there's always a dvar havaya. In other words, there's always a nitzutz eliki, right? There's always a spark in every single thing that exists. Now, this spark comes from the level of the lehanyan heder, but there's a spark in the nivra. So there's a chayes alikis here. There's a spark. What's the pshat of spark? Another lashon for a spark, a nitzutz aliki, is the Eibishter's kavanah. The Eibishter's kavanah in this nivra. Right? So whenever we look at this world, there's two ways to look at the world. You're looking at the world, what the world says for itself, and then you're looking at it at how the Eibishter sees the world, what the Eibishter wants from all this. When we look at the world, mitzad ar tchunis, mitzad ar gdarim, I'm looking at the matziv the way it's right now. What do I see right now? Right now, this is kedusha, this is klipa, this is rishos. as mezuch mit, when you look at it mitzad, with the Eibishter cooked up there, mitzad alikus, so there you're seeing its purpose. You're seeing its kavanah. Right? Oh, the Eibishter creates everything. There's a kavanah here. There's a reason why it's here. So mitzad, this kavanah, and then you have to come and say that even the dein loy hanyanli. Let's get back to that. Why did the Eibishter say dein hanyanli v'dein loy hanyanli? It's not like the Eibishter had right. There wasn't a smorgasbord there, and it's like, yeah, I want kedusha, I don't want klippah. Right? When he said dein loy hanyanli, he bets created the whole mitzvah of klippah with that. So why do you have to go to dein hanyanli, dein loy hanyanli? Just do dein hanyanli, or you don't have to have this whole choice, right? Just create, just bring kedusha. Because there's a kavanah. There's a reason why it goes through this process. And what's the reason? The reason is sof. Right? What's the purpose in the long term? Right? What's the ultimate purpose of klippah? So we know the Beifin Klali, when a person comes to klippah, the only way to deal with it is through tchiyah. But there's two ways where the klippah itself is transformed. Right? Perek Zayin Tanya. There's either through tshuva, but that's only someone that, for whatever reason, ended up in that space that he has to do tshuva. So when he does tshuva, he's mahapich l'ra. And then there's what's going to happen on a global level, collectively, when Mashiach comes, Bila Mavs L'Netzach, and then Ruach Tov Amrin Haaretz, and then the klippah itself is transformed into Kedusha. So ultimately, the end goal is the klippah itself, the klippah will be transformed. Not only that it's nidche, not only that there's a header here. We find in the klippah also this nekuda that there's a mitzias of klippah. Chassidus also has this chakira. If choshech is just header or a lack of or, there's also mitzias of choshech. Mitzad this kuk, there's a mitzias of choshech. The fact that the Eibishter brought klippah into this world because there's a kavanah. And what's the kavanah? Ultimately, that the zach itself should bring to Gilui Likus. Now, right now, we can't do that. It's not only a person that, for whatever reason, ended up there. They could, through that, reach a Gilui Likus. Like, what's a Gilui Likus of a person that fell into klippah? It says in Tanya that through doing tshuva and reaching the highest level of Avar Abbas, who only through the tzimoin, from being so far, being thirsty, that brought him to a greater Ava than any tzaddik can reach. So therefore, the klippah itself, as Zev explains in the Sichis, the Averis becomes sort of a hechsher mitzvah. The Averis becomes something that brought it to a much higher level. But in order to see the likus in the zach itself, you have to leave. You can't look at it the way we see it. It's Adinaim Gashmim from our perspective as Nivroim. As Nivroim, we have to be very clear. This is Kedush, this is Klippah, and that's the big issue of people that say it's Al Likus. Because you're looking at it from your perspective, your eyes, and you're translating it to your language. No, this is klippah. But when you're looking, it's at the Eibishter cooked up there, by the Eibishter, the Osid is machriya the hoive, and the Eibishter. What does the Eibishter see in each thing? The Eibishter sees the kavan in Yedanir. It's how the kavan. It's all alikos. The Chayre, one of the things you see in this Maamer and throughout, and later on, especially when he speaks about Yosef HaTzadik and the Tzadikim. See, one of the inyonim here is the nekud of the Gilui Likus as Gefitzich Do im Welt. We're speaking here about a cook that Erin serves the mata adin tachlis mitzad the Gilui Likus was Do im Welt. It's al tzalikus, right? And taka, that's why many of us we don't actually live over. We live over here. We're brought down by Inyani Yo'elah. That's what even the Shvatim have to leave Inyani Yo'elah. But for someone that lives with this nekuda, some of us by em legt sich up. This nekuda of the Gilui Likus that's in the klippah skufa. So not only do you have here the nekuda of the einoid vafilu kshafim mitzad the shlila mitzad the header, but even in B'shas Maisa, even in the klippah gufa, he's able to see the Gilui Likus. What's the whole purpose of this? What's the whole purpose of this? The aliyah that comes afterwards. Vashenkin everybody else, they get it when they're there. The Baal Tshuva gets it when he reaches the stage of Tshuva. Right? So he's not be echtav ashav. You can go there to the Averis itself and there zuch the Gilui Likus. But in a way, dafka the person that's taka there in the Shalosh Klippos HaTmeis, and that's even lower than Klippos, doing the Averis, now, when he's in that space, now he's able to find the gil, not only the header of the Klippos, and by that be Megal Achtos Hashem in it, but in the Metzias HaKlippa Gufa, be Mehapich the Klippa, so the ganze Aveda von Ishapche, that's before earlier, to completely take the Shtus the Klippa, and be Mehapich at the Kedusha, and to find the Gil Likus in the Klippa Gufa, see how the Averis himself and the Yerida itself brings him to a much higher place, and a much bigger Sheikhus Nalikus, and therefore this itself is Moisvik Kedusha, not only through destroying it, but actually being a Hechsher Mitzvah, and being part of the Gil Likus in the Welt. Fine, yeah? Fine. It's one oifen. I'm sure we can come in with Tainis and Yechka Moed. And if anyone has another oifen, please come Thursday night and speak about it. Barabim. Shkoyach.